Hi, my name is Taryn Harding with the BYU Organ Department. Today we're going to work on how to advance your skills as an organist. The director is responsible for coordinating between the singing congregation and the organist. They are the eyes and ears that help keep everyone on the same page. It can be very helpful to practice with the conductor beforehand. This can give you opportunities to coordinate with each other before you are in front of the congregation, as well as making sure that you're able to ask any questions either of you may have for each other. Be sure you are able to see the conductor before you start playing. If you can't, you can ask the director to position themselves so that you are able to see them easily. If that's not possible because of the way the organ faces, an option you could do would be to position a small mirror on the console to watch their reflection in. Working with a director can be a wonderful collaborative experience. Many new directors look to the organist for support as they're learning. Likewise, an experienced director can be very helpful for an organist. Preparedness, patience, and kindness are key to a spiritually inviting environment. A common practice in hymn playing is to change the registration between some verses. First, you should consult the text to help determine what the message or spirit of the text is in each of the individual verses. Taking the time to understand this will help when you are trying to decide the tone and approach of how to register the hymn. When both hands play on the same manual, chorus registrations are the most common to use for congregational singing. Here's an example of a principal chorus registration being used for hymn 85, How Firm a Foundation. Please see the description box for a link to further explanation of chorus registration. Organists have a variety of options to choose from when registering a hymn. This can be both exciting and intimidating for new organists. Let's learn about a few common approaches you can take to create a registration plan for your hymn. The build-up is where you would slowly, with each verse, build up in volume. Begin by building your softest combination and then gradually build to the loudest. You might also build your softest and loudest combinations and then split the differences between the inner verses. The second standard approach to hymn registration can be described as the hourglass. The first verse is on the loud side to embolden the congregation to sing with confidence. For the internal verses, register them softer to allow the congregation to take the lead. For the final verse, return to a louder, more solid registration. All hymns have repeated notes, and as organists, we need to decide how to treat them. We have to decide if we should repeat or tie them. As there are many different approaches on when to decide if you'll repeat or tie, we will focus on how to actually play the different approaches only right now. For further information on how to decide which way you'll play them, please see the description box for a link that will take you to aids written by Tabernacle organist Dr. Richard Elliott. If you decide to play each repeated note, you would insert a small break, usually about half of the note value written, between the repeated notes while continuing to play all other notes legato. If you choose to tie repeated notes, be sure you never tie any of the notes in the soprano line. You'll also want to avoid ties over bar lines. When you're planning this, be sure to pay attention to where the strong and weak beats in the measure are, leaning towards tying from strong to weak beats. To start developing this skill, use hymns that have been edited for beginning organists, in which some of the repeated notes have been tied. Please check the description box for a link to some of these hymn collections. When ready, you can begin applying this skill during your own hymn preparation to elevate your playing. Finger and thumb glissandos are another way for an organist to keep the legato sound consistent. This is what a finger glissando looks like. This is what a thumb glissando looks like. Finger substitutions are very helpful and allow organists to maintain legato lines by essentially increasing the reach of the hand. This is accomplished by switching fingers while holding down a key, looking like this. Sometimes you'll find that it's easier to play an alto note with the left hand or a tenor note with the right hand. This technique is called redistribution, and you'd simply mark your score with either a bracket or a curved line that clearly indicates which hand will be playing the note. Be sure to be consistent with your markings so they don't become confusing. For exercises to practice these more advanced legato techniques, please see the description box for links. Most hymns consist of 4 vocal lines layered on top of one another. They should be thought of in this way rather than in a series of chords. Learning to maintain the independence of each line is an essential skill for organists. The key to practicing this independence of line is to learn each of the voices one at a time and then begin to play them together in different combinations. Practicing your hymns this way will help you to achieve that refined sound you hear during general conference. To begin this practice technique, you will first want to mark the fingering and pedaling choices for the hymn. Then practice one line at a time, applying the skills you've learned so far to each line. Be sure to use the same fingering you'll be using when you put all 4 lines back together. Once you've mastered each individual line, you can then begin to practice 2 of the lines at the same time. Be sure to alternate the voices until you are comfortable with each combination. For example, practice the soprano line with the alto. The soprano line with the tenor. The soprano line and the bass. The alto and tenor lines. Alto and bass line. and finally tenor and bass. Once you're able to play 2 lines together, you would do the same process with all 3 part combinations, and then finally with all 4 parts together. Be sure as you practice this technique that you're paying close attention to each line's independence. This technique can be applied to any organ piece you may be learning. Please see the description box for a handout that outlines this technique in even more detail. I hope you enjoy practicing advancing your organ skills.